That's not where struggling farms fail, usually. It's not the growing. It's selling what they grow, selling enough of what they grow, selling everything they grow, selling the right crops for the right amount in the right market.
You're listening to How I Grow This, exploring stories of gardeners from across the globe as we learn from their biggest tips and tricks to some of the things not to do. I'm your host, Luke Hammond. Diego, welcome to the show. You have the longest running podcast in this market sector, I think, ever. I think there was like two podcasters. There was Joe Rogan and then Diego Footer that were like podcasting back when podcasts weren't even a thing, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's funny because I've podcasted so long. I was thinking about it the other day. There were people that were too young to listen to podcasts when I started podcasting. So that makes me feel old.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you have had a front row seat from the very get-go of walking people through small or farm small, farm smart. Was that the first handle that you had when you started talking to growers?
No, initially it was under the permaculture umbrella. I started with Permaculture Voices, the podcast, as a way to learn about the space, promote the series of conferences I was doing. Then this was back in the early 20-teens. And it was focused on everything from large scale agroforestry type stuff to animal systems. And then I met Curtis Stone through that, got involved in market gardening. And that's really where my interest was there. And along the way, I've had many, many spin-off podcasts, from ones that just focus on livestock to ones that focus on urban farming to Farm Small, Farm Smart, which is one now where I talk a lot about just small scale market farming principles. So it's been a varied course along the way, but covered a pretty wide swath of agriculture.
Yeah. So what was it that drew you to agriculture in the first place? I mean, it started at permaculture and then moved into market garden, and now you're real heavy into market garden, and we'll get into the systems and designs and all the tool side. But what drew you to this small scale agriculture in the first place?
Yeah, backed into it through diet. That got me interested in the toolkit that's permaculture. When I got into that, it was, wow, look at all the cool things you can do. Look at all the design principles. How do you implement that? And that was all great and fun on a small scale homesteady level. But where I started to see a disconnect was people want to make a living using these techniques. And I had an interest in gardening. I'm very much a want to be farmer in a way. I don't think I would ever do it given the course of my life and the other things I focus on. But I've always had this vicarious career as a market gardener. So it was that transition from the techniques of permaculture, starting to apply business to it, which I've always been entrepreneurial, and then thinking, all right, how do you use these techniques in a business sense? And that's where farming came in. It's the obvious answer. If you want to work with nature, if you want to be regenerative, you have to raise and sell food to people. Let's start talking about the business of doing that.
So you've had this front row seat. You've interviewed thousands at this point of growers. You've talked to thousands more. You've sold products to and been on the cutting edge of innovation in the small farm space. I am years behind you in this, but seeing correlations, I see certain things within certain farmers, and many farmers have an unfair advantage, I call it. Each one's different. Some are very methodical and really good at keeping tabs and bookkeeping. Some just have the greenest thumb you can imagine and can't make anything die. What do you think is the foundational building blocks for being successful in the market garden space, given all these conversations? What does it take?
Really, I think it comes down to where I've tried to plant a flag and beat this drum, pound it into people's heads for the last year or really even longer. But this idea of building a farm business, not just a farm. So many people are attracted to the fantasy idea of back to the land. This is nothing new. It's been going on forever, which is fine if you want to homestead or farmstead, sell a little bit off the homestead. But if you want to be a market garden, a market farm, you can't just focus on and romanticize about the things that you love, which are the beautiful photos of field blocks and getting your hands in the soil and growing. It comes down to you need to start a business. You need to run it as a business. It just happens to be a business that's a farm. And I think that's where the disconnect can be. Some people want the vision of a farm. They never intended to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to be entrepreneurs. They maybe aren't cut out to do that. And so they run it how they think they should, and they follow their interests, which are soil, plants, that type of thing. But that's only part of it. That's not where struggling farms fail, usually. It's not the growing. It's selling what they grow, selling enough of what they grow, selling everything they grow, selling the right crops for the right amount in the right market. That's where they struggle. It's the business of farming is the disconnect. I see it on Instagram. That's the catalyst to get me into the top of the funnel here. But as they percolate down the funnel, they either don't know or willingly or unwillingly ignore the fact that, we got to frame this as a business. Otherwise, it's just a hobby.
I think that's super true. Do you feel like people rapidly get into success who start the framework with the business first and then begin to develop systems associated with the ideal farm?
I don't know that there's that strong of a correlation, but I would say that if you approach it that way, you're more likely to hit the success target faster than somebody who just grows stuff and then decides, I want to sell it. Because the first way, you're starting out with some intentionality. How much money do I have to invest? How much money do I need to make? Who's my customer? What am I going to sell them? How am I going to get that product to them? If I start to define those things first, that controls the design of the farm. It's the dog wagging the tail. If I know my customers are people in a nearby city and I can sell the typical premium market garden crops like salad greens, well, I need to engineer my farm to process greens. I need to have a wash pack. I need to have a refrigeration system. If you go the other way and just start growing, you get the experience, which is fine. But then you might find, well, I've set my farm up to do these things, but my customer base wants this. I don't have the infrastructure to do that. Or I want to sell to restaurants, so they want a certain consistent order every week. I don't have the staff. I don't have the systems. I don't have the tools and equipment to provide that on the frequency that they need it. So yes, it's anything else. It's any business. If you start with a plan of how the business should work, you build the stuff around that plan to ensure the plan has success. You don't just start doing stuff and then say, how do we shape this into a business?
What do you think are some of the challenges that farmers face? Like, what separates farming from any other business as to why a majority of farmers or growers struggle to view it in that same way that you just described?
A few things come to mind. One, low barrier to entry, which is great. A lot of people can get in. Don't need a lot of land, don't need a lot of money. Compared to starting a restaurant, a shop, a gas station, easy to get into. The The problem, though, is that makes it seem like the whole thing is easy and success will come easy. So a lot of people get into it thinking, oh, I just can dabble here, and they never take it serious. I think another potential issue is people don't want to commit from the beginning to being a business. They get excited about the growing. They get excited about being in the field. And they don't realize the importance early on of setting up the principles. You have to deal with the weather, and you're producing product. I run Modern Grower. We sell supplies. I don't make these tools myself. We buy them from somebody who makes them. We form a partnership with a manufacturer. They manufacture, we sell. I order, I receive, I sell. Farming, you're producing the actual product. You have to take it from seed to whatever you ultimately sell. In the context of weather that you can't control, that's very hard for a lot of people to do well, consistently, and at the quality needed to support a business, or at the scale needed to support their livelihood. The other thing is, I think it's very hard. And that's part of the reason I never went into farming. Don't get me wrong. I work hard, but I don't love farming enough to want to put in the hard work that's required to farm. You're working in heat, you're working in cold, wet conditions, dry conditions, windy conditions. It's intensely physical for most people who sit at a computer and type away all day. I don't think most people can handle that. And I think the first time they volunteer on a farm, work on a farm for a season, their eyes get open to the reality of, oh my God, this is hard. This isn't doing something leisurely and selling it, the gentlemanly farmer, right? Oh, I'm here on my plantation just selling stuff. It's a lot of grind, and it's field work that's very much factory work. It's the same things over and over. You become automaton, repeat things, the romanticism dies away. So you get also if you go full circle, easy barrier to entry. I can start a farm with not much money, not much land. I start trying to raise the product. I'm dealing with bugs, weather. Oh my God, this is hard. I'm worn out. It's hard. And I think that's the separator. There's definitely thinking work, but the physical work compared to, say, opening some sort of store, very different. And I don't think a lot of people are cut out for it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective. I kind of take it for granted, I guess, my ability for physical work and doing it. I really enjoy it. I thrive on it. However, I resonate very deeply with the grind, especially being an Arizona farmer a lot of years. Now I'm in Missouri right now. But when you're in Arizona and it's 107 every day and you're out there trying to make sure stuff is not dying, and then you bring all the stuff in, you get everything right, and you're like, okay, I need to sell this. It's got to move. That's where the structure gets a little bit frustrating, especially year 1, year 2, year 3, when the markets aren't established. And there's that fine line dance between over marketing and under delivering, or over delivering and under marketing. How many people that you've talked to feel that fine line for their products? I guess it depends on where they're marketing their stuff. If they go to a farmer's market, it's kind of one of those, the market is what it is. It's super weather dependent. They're not necessarily they have a interaction with the marketing towards it, but it's not the full marketing for the people there. Speak to that a little bit, of the challenge between creating that supply chain as it varies very regularly, and being able to sell it? Is there such a thing as over marketing?
I think the process of customer acquisition is hard in any business. And if you just go out and wing it, which many people do, here's a typical path. I'm going to start a farm, grow stuff, roll up to my farmer's market, start selling. Let's assume this is an existing farmer's market, not new. I'm new to the market. Why are people buying from me? Unless the farmer's market's adding in customers that didn't previously come to the market, most likely many of those customers already have a chosen vendor for whatever product it is. Why are they going to switch to you? You could say cost, but market gardeners don't want to play on cost. And like branding and things like that probably aren't a strong enough proposition. So building that customer base is tough. I think maybe where it falls apart, and I once interviewed somebody, this is going back around COVID, and they were really struggling, and I couldn't even use the interview because it was too sad of a story that they were market farming and they're just like, this doesn't work. Market farming's not a valid thing. They wanted to grow, but they didn't put a lot of effort into selling. And I didn't want to go into some virtual consult on the thing, but they never really figured out how to sell more. And there's no easy answer to that because, I mean, and if I had to boil it down in general, you need to sell into a large, affluent population. That's it. If you're selling in a very rural part of the country, there might not be a market there. It might not work, or you're going to have to find something that stands out. I think once you talked about, hey, I can't do the salad mix thing. I got to do blackberries because people didn't care about salad mix and where you were. So there's that. And can you overmarket? No, but you definitely can undermarket. And maybe where the problem arises is before you even start the business, it's who am I selling to? What am I selling them? Why would they buy from me? What's different that I can penetrate here? How much money do I need to make in year one? If I go to place A to sell it and it doesn't make enough, what's my plan B? There's not enough foresight into contingency planning, which is crazy because this is people effectively gambling with their livelihoods here and just kind of putting it out to chance. And I think the other thing is too many people want to go 0 to 60 right away, where I would say a lot of the success stories are 0 customers, 10 customers, 20 customers, 40 customers, 50 customers, 100, and they build there. And maybe that takes 6 years to make the living that you wanted. For 6 years, most people is like, it might as well be a lifetime. It's too long. Some people get lucky. They can sell right into the right market right away. And part of that is they've identified, hey, here's this right market. Where's my niche? If I was going to go sell into Los Angeles, I'd try and find what is this market missing that I can grow? Forget what I want to grow. Are there local mom and pop grocery stores that somehow want to buy local and they can't find a certain product? Can I do that? Is there a restaurant scene where they want enough of a certain product I can grow that? If I go to a farmer's market, how do I stand out? What do I do different? I do a farmer's market with my daughter once a month. She sells some homemade stuff at one. So I see a lot of the veg farmers. A lot of them are the same. Like you cover up the sign on the booth. Everything's the same. Tomatoes, carrots, greens. What's different? Why is somebody buying from vendor A than B? And maybe they have 15 veg vendors. Over time, they've built a loyal audience. but there's no differentiating factor. So if you're a new person showing up, why do I care?
That's a really powerful thought and concept, that people don't realize is I've experienced this, and why I personally got fed up with the farmers market scene is year one. Uh, when I entered that farmers market scene, you'd see certain things, um, and you see where everyone's flocking to as another farmer and what they're buying. And, for me, it was striped Armenian cucumbers, early 2011. And nobody was really growing these cucumbers, and things were doing really well. The next year, everybody had striped Armenian cucumbers. The whole market begins to be like a race to what they see is going out fastest. And then, like you just described, everybody has the same stuff. Um, Carrots, tomatoes, bag of greens. And everyone's on the internet right now, and people are talking about the success stories of carrots, lettuce mix, and tomatoes. And so this leads me to this next question of what business models do you see that are really underrated and underutilized within people getting started in market farming?
I've talked a lot to Meg Neubauer over the past 2 years. She wrote The U-Pick Revolution, talks all about having a U-Pick farm. I've talked to a couple other people doing that. I think that model's really interesting in the right area. It solves a lot of the problems maybe that people going into farming have, meaning you can focus on growing. Somebody else, the customer, comes in and harvests. Your marketing, pretty much just marketing your U-Pick. You're not having to go to chefs. You're not having to go to restaurants. You're not going to farmers market. I think it's an interesting model. You have to be that type of person who wants to engage with the public, have people come on your land, set yourself up. But I like that. Like personally, for me, that's something I would be into. Anything I can do on my property, I'm intrigued by. A farm stand. If I'm on a street that gets a reasonable amount of traffic, put it out there, stock it, go. The online thing, I think always has presence as a good backup. Having online farm stores, I think that's definitely died off some since COVID. Those are probably the three that get the least attention, and they can all be, not all. They can in some way be a form of redundancy. If you just want to do the farmer's market, the very first thing you have to say is, once you decide what farmer's market you're doing is, what do I do with the extra? How do I get rid of that? Don't assume you're going to sell everything you grow at the farmer's market. So you need at least a second market stream that's low lift, low management to sell that. Maybe that's the online store. Maybe it's some sort of buying club or salad CSA. Maybe it's a farm stand. How do you unload the extra? But those models I think are interesting. The Rico ring thing in certain areas, I think is really fascinating. I've done podcasts on that. There's other people who have as well. Essentially a group of vendors who come together to sell. Imagine almost like a farmer's market online, where a lot of the promotion's done through Facebook groups and that type of thing. Then the vendors show up at some place, people come and they buy. The CSA, the restaurant sales, the farmer's market, that's easy. That's low hanging out fruit. They have their purpose. They're great. They definitely sustain businesses in this space. But there are other ways to get creative to move product.
How did you describe that? You called it the Rico ring?
Yeah. REKO. It was started in Sweden, I believe. There's several of them in the US now. So if you Google that term, you'll see what it is.
It reminds me very similarly to what I remember in the early 90s, a lot of farms, created co-ops, and it's the co-op model. And really, it's a model that Azure Standard seems to be selling through. People can buy throughout the month. There's a close off date. Everything's packed, and then it all gets delivered, out to every location across the United States in kind of semi bulk, drop points along the journey. Do you think it is wise for a small farmer, given the right personality of the person, to start by collectively going to a bunch of other farmers as a farmer and establishing that co-op and establishing that network or that hub for food, saying, hey, are you frustrated with trying to move food? What if we all banded together for strength? Because I feel like a lot of farmers view all the other farmers as competition rather than the collaborative effort. Do you see that at all?
I don't disagree, but I would not start there. That's starting two businesses at the same time. I would make sure you're rolling, you're selling everything you can, and you've made the determination, I need to sell more, and co-oping together will enable me to sell more. Some people don't want to sell more. I've talked to so many growers they found their sweet spot. This many customers, this much in annual sales, that's it. I don't need to go more and more. If you are struggling, would a co-op provide the solution? Maybe, but it also depends on why are you struggling. In a super rural area, if you're struggling, like more farmers in a rural area, co-oping together probably doesn't do anything. So I like the idea. I think it makes more sense at a commodity level, like an Organic Valley, where they have eggs and dairy and stuff like that, where they would normally get commodity pricing, and they can come together, value add, put a brand on it, and get better than commodity pricing. It's small scale. Like, I love the idea. I totally agree that the competition versus cooperation thing, but you'd have to be careful. There's a lot of work just in the logistics probably of managing that. And if you're already struggling, might your effort be better focused on solving your own problems before taking on a new set of problems?
That leads to this question of many farms kind of struggle to verify and pinpoint what the real issue is within their farm or their farming systems. What are some of the questions that a farm should ask in order to pinpoint their biggest struggles, and how can they make the changes necessary to pull them out of those struggles?
First thing I would ask somebody is, do you sell everything you grow? If you don't, there's your problem. You don't have enough customers, or you're grossly overproducing out of some sort of blindness. Then you attack that problem. Try and get more customers, reduce production, mix your product mix. Maybe you're selling out of something at the market, but you're way long on something else. That would be a thing. I would say it should be obvious if it's a production problem. If you think you can get 100 pounds of salad mix off your bed and you're getting 20, well, that's a growing problem. You can solve that. Or you direct seed something and half the bed comes up. You can figure that. So I'll just stick with the businessy type things. Are you selling for the right price? Which starts at, do you know your cost? Which then goes to, do you know your time into that product? Planting, seeding, harvesting, wash, packing, all that to sell it for the right price. You can go broke selling everything for too cheap because your costs have exceeded your product, your sales price. That's probably where I would start, those things. If you attack those, you shouldn't have a problem, because if you're selling everything you grow, the question then is, can I grow more? Will my market absorb it if I grow it? If yes, I grow more. If not, but I still need more money, Can I aggregate product or something like that? Sell my customers product from some other farm. If I'm not selling everything I grow, well, then I overproduce or I undersell. If I'm selling everything I grow and I'm not making enough money, then it's a pricing problem or potentially a cost structure problem or both. So those are two easy areas to investigate and really think about. And the great thing about this stuff is like, you don't need a tool, an app, spend money, a consultant. This is stuff you can do for free. It just takes time. And most people don't spend the time. Dead weight products would be another thing. How many products are you growing? What's the total revenue every product brings in? What's the total bed space that product took up? Turn that into a dollars per bed metric, sort those, and cut the bottom stuff. Because it's probably taking up time, creating stress, using up bed space for something else that's making money. So I don't think any of this is hard. And it's something any business, if you were in a restaurant, you would approach this stuff the same way. This isn't unique to farming, and this isn't necessarily even my concepts. These are just normal business principles through a farming lens.
What do you think it is about farming that makes a lot of people just kind of throw out the business principles? What is it?
Not what they're interested in. You see
Just
the
from
people. I see the people who work out and they have big biceps, big chest, but tiny legs. Like they're just not interested in doing squats. So they have tiny legs. And that's how I think some of this stuff is. People want to grow. They want to play farmer. They don't want to run a farm business. They might, they maybe use, I'm not a numbers person. I'm not good at math. I don't know what to do as excuses. It's a priority problem. I prioritize doing things that aren't looking at my numbers on the computer or just thinking about my business. That's all it is. There's probably some knowledge gap, and I'm trying to close that through my podcast, through my YouTube channel, everything I do. But at the end of the day, I can give you all the knowledge in the world if you don't do it. And I think people just don't want to do it. We all have things in our life that we know we should do. We know it's the right thing. We know it's how to get better or improve at whatever we're doing. But for whatever reason, the barrier is just a little too high for our interest level. And we're just like, nah.
I think a big part of consulting is an accountability aspect where you're paying a consultant simply to keep you accountable to the things that you already know you ought to do, because you have to give a report on it. In many ways, not always, but I think in many ways that's a possibility there. I want to take a hard pivot because you have been providing products and farm tools for years, years and years, starting with a company entitled Paper Pot Co., and then it shifted into Modern Grower. And you were one of the main guys that popularized the paper pot transplanter system, and brought that into the market garden space because it solves a problem for people. What is that particular product, and what problem does it solve for people, and how do they know when it's the right solution for their size?
Yeah, this started back in 2017 when we started Paper Pot Co. because there was demand for that product, the Paper Pot transplanter, but it was harder to get or hard to find information about in the US. We weren't the first ones to import it, but we were for sure the ones that mainstreamed it. And that tool helps you transplant crops faster and easier. You can so compare anything you would hand Salanova. I want to plant a bed. I can raise it in cell trays, go out, plant it by hand. That involves bending over. It's timely. It's not the most fun job, I would bet, if you asked most farm workers, especially if you're doing multiple beds. The paper pot transplanter enables you to get those transplants into the ground, standing up, walking down the field, no bending over, relatively low effort compared to hand transplanting. So that's what attracted people to it. There's an efficiency component. It enables you to work quicker and maybe do more, especially where I think it makes sense, single person farms, low labor farms, 1 or 2 people, where you're already constrained. You only have so many hours to do things. Well, if you can shave 30 minutes here, but not just shave 30 minutes, reduce your overall fatigue that day because you're not bending over transplanting, that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, though, I think you have to be at the right scale. I wouldn't start my farm with that tool. Hand
Mm-hmm.
transplant first, get used to it, learn it. When you start hitting a ceiling of, wow, what goal could this tool get me? Save time, save physical wear and tear, make transplanting easier. Then I look at the tool. That's what I try and tell people when they buy tools, whether it's our tools or somebody else's. What results are you seeking from the tool? If you're seeking a result of time savings, then if the tool can deliver that, it's a win. If it just looks cool, which is unfortunately the reason a lot of people buy tools, is that's fun, that looks cool, I think I should have it, then it's a waste of money.
Mm-hmm.
But that tool I've seen now with a decade of sales saves people time, makes their lives easier with less bending over, less physical wear and tear, makes it easier on their staff, makes tasks much more repeatable. They can get stuff into the ground earlier in the day on hot days. The people that love it, we've had customers for 10 years. Some people, they try it, their context isn't right, they don't commit. It has a learning curve. It's not like a drill where you pick it up and, hey, I need to drill a hole. It's easy. Anybody can figure that out. Soil, the settings on it, bed prep, moisture level in the bed all have some effect. But that's in general why people use it.
Yeah, I think that was my experience. I tried to scale to that, and I didn't run the math on it to where I was like, you know what? I'm actually selling enough of this particular kind of salad mix or head lettuce to make the numbers really pencil out for me. And my soil composition was quite poor on the farm that I was farming when I purchased that tool. And it was a struggle for me. You know, I was like, man, this was a stretch. It was a big stretch for me. I wasn't at a state to buy it. I thought the tool was going to fix a problem that I didn't actually have. I didn't know that I didn't have that problem. I thought I was fixing a problem that I didn't have. But I was primarily growing a mixed green lettuce that would be direct seeded, and I had more space, so I could just direct seed more beds. So I didn't need to have more transplanting space because I had plenty of space to begin with. And I didn't need to stagger my plantings by 2 weeks, you know, by utilizing the system that the paper pot offered. There's a lot of tools like that. And I know that you and I have had a lot of conversations about tools that come up. The paper pot, by all means, is not a gimmicky tool. It's like Diego said, this is a huge, like, legitimate tool in the right context. I wasn't at that context for my farm. I could have grown into it. I just didn't. So what are some of the challenges when you think about developing new tools that you have to reach a very, very diverse market sector of growers that have different needs? What are some of the questions you begin to ask as you're developing tools? And what's some of the innovation that is making a major difference for small scale producers right now?
I would say there's probably too many tools being made for the space that don't need to be made. That's the one thing. So when I look at something now, it's, will most people need it? Meaning, will it help most people? Not one person in one unique use case, most people. Could I see it on most farms? The answer to that is no. Why are we making it? And I think a lot of tools now are Me Too type tools, slightly improved versions of something already out there. That's not to say people aren't making good tools or it's bad quality. I'm not saying that at all. I think a lot of the tools out there are good quality, but I do question the existence of some of the stuff out there. Does the world
Hmm.
need another wheel hoe, another broad fork? At some point, the one that was built 20 years ago was good enough. And we can
Hmm.
make slight improvements and they look a little better or maybe last a little longer, but they do the same function. So we don't develop a lot of new stuff now. I'm pretty
Hmm.
selective because I
Hmm.
don't think it justifies the time, money, or effort to do it unless it's truly game changing. Where I could see this go, and we're not near big enough. I don't think any of the small farm companies are, but some sort of electric autonomous tractor that can do a lot of the things out there. And I think if you're a small company taking that on, it's going to be a money pit, but you're seeing it at the big scale on Mega Ag, where they have these autonomous tractors to do these things and precision fertilizer application, weed control, seeding, all that stuff. I think that is amazing. I don't know that our space is ever big enough to absorb all that
Hmm.
cost, but that's something I think is interesting. It's hard because I think you really don't need a lot of tools.
Hmm.
And I've
Hmm.
maybe come full circle on this as somebody who sold tools. It was like, all right, let's start selling one tool and then let's sell some more tools. And then it's really, what tools do people need? There aren't
Hmm.
that many. The market farmer, prospective market farmer should more be asking, what don't I have to buy? What's the least I can buy to make this farm profitable? Keep the most money in your bank that you can instead of giving it to some sort of tool company. There's
Hmm.
basics that you for sure need, but you don't need everything that's out there.
For sure. For sure. You brought up the autonomous tractor, and we've talked a little bit um, about maybe business models that might change in the future. My parents were recently in the Phoenix area, and they were talking about all the autonomous vehicles going around and delivering products or goods. Maybe they were ordered online, almost like a Uber Eats form of transportation where people can order something from their phone. Do you think this is a major space that home small scale farms could be looking towards, of home delivery from autonomous um, systems?
Yeah, if you could somehow piggyback on one of these, obviously you're not starting it, or Uber Eats or something like that, DoorDash,
Sure.
where somehow you can get onto there. Absolutely. The premium, the thing that everybody wants now is convenience and to save time. If you can somehow get your product to be convenient and time saving for people, then they might buy it. Part of the problem, a lot of people, well, not part of, the reason a lot of people don't go to farmers markets is because it's a pain in the butt and they can't buy everything there. It's not a one stop shop. Whether you like Walmart or not, if I go to Walmart grocery, I can buy everything I need there. Milk, meat, yogurt, cheese, frozen stuff, veg. Might not be the great quality, but if I go to a farmer's market, it can be a lot harder to put that same package together, especially at a cost that works for a lot of people. So, yeah, if you could tap into some way for stuff to get delivered, somebody can order it off of DoorDash. I don't know. It'd be interesting if there are any farms on something like that, even with the fees. It'd be worth exploring, I think.
After asking all these people across the world, um, what are some of the top crops that they grow? Is it all the same profitability from location to location? What are the top crops that people grow?
I mean, I mostly focus US. We'll touch Canada, very rarely touch Europe. The list boils down to this. If you're exploring market gardening, you're going to look at these crops first. That doesn't mean they're going to work, but this is the start list. Salad mix, whatever that means. That could be some sort of lettuce blend. You could have other greens in there. You can rotate it seasonally. The great thing about salad mix is it can be a mix. So you're not committed to just selling tomatoes, which have to be tomatoes. If I'm short on tomatoes, I can't give you carrots. Salad mix, I can put whatever in. So you're always starting at salad mix. Carrots, but I think a lot of people will find those tricky to grow early on. Root veg, other root veg, radish, turnips, depending on market, worth exploring because fast growing, quick crop tends to be popular, also pairs well with salad. If you think about this whole suite, we're growing a bowl of salad. Everything that can be eaten together without cooking with minimal prep. Tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, maybe a lot of work in your location. Maybe your market cares for them. Maybe it doesn't. Some markets, if you hit the seasonality right, premium, worth exploring. Summer squash could be, depending on the work required there. Microgreens as a salad mix filler, I think always makes sense. Not even always selling them as just microgreens, but hey, couldn't get enough from the field this week. I'm going to put pea shoots into my salad mix. Some basic familiar herbs, cilantro, basil would be two. Parsley you could throw in there, green onions. That's probably the list of the core. I'm not saying there aren't others that work, but that's what a lot of people are selling, what most people are buying that can be planted efficiently, harvested and processed efficiently, and checks all the boxes for what you want in a crop. High dollar per square foot, fast turnover, long seasonality, popular, and high dollar per unit sales. All those things are what you're looking for in a crop. So that 10-ish, now we're not counting like salad mix. That could be a bunch of varieties of greens to go with the season, but that's one SKU that takes a bunch of stuff into it. That's where I'd start. I think where people get into trouble is then they add in green beans and peas and strawberries and garlic and onion and all sorts of stuff. And that's where I think it really goes to be a mess. Now I say this, those are the main crops. They're all, if you grow them right and price them right, they're profitable. Even if you didn't run the numbers, they are. The question is, does your market have an opening to sell them?
Yeah.
Salad mix is profitable. But if your market is saturated with salad mix, it doesn't matter. So you have to have a opening in the market to sell it. But those are the crops. And then you start with a few. A lot of successful farmers I've talked to have 5, 6 crops they start with. Grow those. Build your expertise in those. Build your market reputation in those. Then wait for people to start asking for the same crop over and over and over again. And when the 50th person asks you, hey, can you grow patty pan squash, run the numbers and then look at growing it, or grow a small half bed of a test crop, see how it sells. But don't back up the truck on some sort of exotic cauliflower or rutabaga thinking that's your get rich quick scheme, right?
Yeah. What are the top questions?
One other, flowers, cut flowers, pick your own flowers, huge space, becoming more and more popular. In some places, easier to grow, easier to sell, easier to get into than veg. So they're in their own category, but cut flowers would be another one.
Very cool. What are some advice you would give to somebody that is interested in scaling up? And then what's advice you would give for somebody interested in scaling down? I think so often in the space, people feel pressure to stay in one direction or the other. They're always trying to scale up and they can't scale down, or they want to scale down and they're just overwhelmed and they don't.
Well, if you want to scale up, the question is why? Is it because you need more money? If that's the case, is there a way to make more money without scaling up? Raise prices, cut costs, sell co-op with other farmers and sell their product. So that would be that. But some people just want to grow because they want to build a massive business. That's their thing. Bigger is better, but there has to be a reason why. The scaling down thing is interesting. Some people might be better constricting. In some ways, we've done this with our business. I looked at where are we doing most of our sales? What's our available labor? What is our customer base? Where's our niche? Where do we feel comfortable? Let's drop stuff, focus on that, and focus on doing a better job on less stuff. Revenue may initially take a dip, but life should get easier. We're managing less stuff. We're focused on less stuff. So we can do a better job now on a few little things. If you want to scale down, it's probably because you're overwhelmed and you're just doing too much. So then the question is, well, what's the money look like? Because it's a very different answer. If you're making enough money, scaling down becomes easier. If you're worked to the bone and you're like, man, I need to cut back because I'm just burning out, but you're not making enough money, then that's more of a life decision. Like, is this the right path? How much money do I need? Where did I go wrong here? So it gets tricky. Why are you scaling back? And what does that do? It's going to affect potentially income in some way. Your cost structure is going to be affected because if you're doing less, you're planting less, maybe less labor, reallocates time to other areas. Now, if it's something as simple as we have 3 markets, 2 of them are dead, gone. We grow 50 crops, but 15 only make the money. Cut them. Why are people reluctant to do that? Some people just are comfortable with what they do. They're afraid. You see this on a lot of TV shows where they do some sort of business makeover. Oh, Alice always comes into the restaurant and she always asks for the liver and onions. Well, how many people order the liver and onions every month? Oh, just Alice when she comes in. So they get stuck on this idea that, oh, that one customer, I'll let them down instead of focusing on the greater good. At some point, you have to be a little ruthless. It's your business. It needs to be run to fit your life. That may mean inconveniencing others temporarily to get the business to work. Because ultimately, like if I'm selling paper chain pots and I'm maxed out and I have to shut my business down, now customers have a problem. Where if I scale back on some other fringe products and I can focus more on the chain pots, I'm around longer now in the marketplace for the people who want the chain pots. So you think about it that way. I think a lot of businesses, where am I at? Where do I need to go?
Mm-hmm.
What are all the ways to get there? And what's the best path to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing every path, including the best ones, going to have trade-offs. And a lot of work is just nose to the grindstone, getting things done the same way they've always been done because it is. And people don't step back and think, why am I even doing this in the first place?
Yeah, that's good. I think to a mutual friend of ours that is one of the top market gardeners, in my opinion, in probably North America, Ray Tyler, who was running flat out doing chickens and pigs and tractor work and acres of veg. And then his daughter got cancer and everything shifted and he had to reprioritize what they did. And they got rid of all the animals, they got rid of the tractors, and they focused in very specifically on a few different crops, and that radically changed everything on his farm. And that scaling down in products and you really transition quickly into a scaling up of finances and products within the market garden space and focusing on plants. Um, and and so I think of that story, and I know that a lot of people feel that pressure. Maybe not now in March or April when this episode comes out. Everyone's kind of in spring, fired up, ready to go. But come August, burnout is for real. What are the top things that market farmers can do to avoid burnout?
This sounds like a bad answer, but it's do less. And you arrive at doing less by saying, what work has to be done? And what work am I doing that doesn't have to be done? And a lot of us do a ton of work that doesn't have to be done. I've done so many things with our business that I thought mattered. I stopped. No one noticed. No one complained. It was just gone. And I think so many businesses, this might be drastic, but I think almost every business would be better off selling less stuff, not quantity, total SKUs, total products, focusing more on a few things and doing them really well. If you can get your product line down to the essential stuff that carries all the economic weight for the farm, that should reduce your workload. It should reduce your stress burden. You focus on that. Then you start to systematize stuff around those crops that work, put in processes that you can really examine and say, like, do I need to broad fork this bed every time I turn it over? Some people do, but does it actually matter? I don't know, but I do it. Well, that's work that you might not have to do. Maybe that's where you introduce a tool like the paper pot to make it easier if you're at the burnout stage. But you put the systems in place. I think when you have good systems, then you can say, is this realistically what one person can accomplish? If not, then maybe it's time to hire. And people get nervous because that's money going out the door. But if you're doing 2 persons worth of labor yourself to make 1 person's wage, your business is already broke. Nobody needs to work 80 hours to make 1 salary. Occasionally stuff breaks. Occasionally there's a rush. I get it. But if you're consistently doing 2 persons work to make 1 salary, the business is messed up. It's wrong. So if you're doing 80 hours of work, get your work down to 40, hire somebody else. Usually when you hire, if you hire right, you systematize things, your money can go up because you can focus more on the business than in the business. Sales, cutting costs, systematizing, fixing pricing, strategizing, all those things value add the business. Those are the ways you avoid burnout. You have a plan. You're not winging it. And I think the other thing is it comes with experience. The first year doing any business, first few years probably, you're going to get burned out because you don't know what to do all the time. Not because you're stupid, because you haven't encountered situations before. There's some experiential ignorance happening there. And until you go through it, you don't do it. Like now, something breaks on Shopify, I don't stress about it now because I generally know how to fix it, or I know the best path to get it fixed. Where the first time that happened, it's like, oh my God, freaking out, fire. And over time, you just learn those things. So focus on the stuff that matters. Build systems around that. Systems, lower your costs, hopefully bring more money in, scale back hours, hire if needed. Always ask, do I have to do this? If you're 80 hours a week, write down everything you're doing every day with the approximate amount of time it takes. Do that for 1 week. It'll be a pain in the butt. Sit down one day the next week and go through the list and say, what has to be done? Where am I leaking time? Maybe it's like, oh, I went to fix that leak on the sprinkler, but I got all the way out there and then had to spend 5 minutes going back to the shed to get channel locks and then come back. And then I needed glue. I went back. So there's like those types of things. People don't focus on the most important projects. It's a lot of, it's like the urgency versus important type things that come up. You want to do urgent, important tasks, not urgent and not important. That's the Eisenhower matrix, which is a way of thinking about it. And that's what I've tried to do with everything I do in life and business is just cut stuff relentlessly. Just get it out of my life. If it doesn't matter, if it's not adding value to my business where I want my business to go, I'm not going to do it. And everybody's context will be different. So the way you get away from 80-hour a week is through conscious thought and planning of how not to work that long. If you want to complain about working 80 hours and not change anything, well, don't put any thought into how to get it lower.
I've seen this a lot where people also say they're working 80 hours, but it doesn't mean that they're working 80 hours. It means that they're thinking about the business 80 hours. And it's not a thinking thing. It's not a think style business. It's a farm business, and they may be only actually working 20 hours and the rest of it's wing flapping, like you described, fluttering around from one thing to the next in misusing your time. It's like me trying to play basketball and jump. When I jump, my body moves in every direction, not just up. It's like, what are you doing with your legs and your arms? I'm not trained to play basketball, right? And so that's the example is you're going in every direction at once and you're not efficient with what you're doing.
I saw some sort of YouTube headline. It is clickbaity, but I think it's pretty true. Just this morning, and it was something like spend 2 hours of focused work a day and be in the top 1%. And I honestly think that's pretty true. 2 hours of focused work is an insanely long period of time. If somebody right now paused this podcast and sat down with no distractions, no phone, no browsing stuff, and work for 2 hours, you would be amazed at how much you got done. The problem now is we're working, but we're constantly interrupted by staff, family, notifications on the phone. So we don't get a lot done. Or like you said, there's wing flapping. We're just doing the wrong stuff. And to stop doing the wrong stuff, you at first have to sit down and say, what do I need to focus on? Right? This is why most people can't get fit or can't lose weight or something. They go to the gym and they waste time. Where you see people who are in shape that can go there for half an hour, a couple of days a week, but they just know what to do. They get in, get the job done, and get out.
Yeah, I think right after this, I'm actually headed to the gym. So that's reminding me to give a little less talk time in between sets and a little more workout time. Diego, I want to go to some quick rapid fire questions that will take up next to no time. I want really fast answers. What's your favorite crop to grow?
Tomatoes, by far. Just always interested in them. Love the stories behind them. Love the visual. Love that they're seasonal. Like tomato sauce. That's where I go.
Awesome. What's the most overrated crop?
Pumpkin, squash. Hate it. Don't get it. Doesn't make sense. Maybe that's the most overrated one to grow because it takes up a bunch of space. Slow. Yeah. I don't know who buys it anyway.
I definitely agree with you there. What's the one tool you couldn't live without?
Right now, I'd say the computer and all the tools we have available to us. We have so much processing, learning, analysis ability, even compared to what we had 3 or 4 years ago. It's insane. We are extremely lucky to have this much information at our fingers with this much processing ability. For all the conspiracy theories aside, if you use it and take advantage of it, it's unreal what we can do now.
True. What's the best $100 investment that you can spend on your small scale farm?
They might be more than $100, but I would say a good pair of footwear, whatever it is, boots. People cheap on stuff. My whole rule in life is anything you spend a lot of time in, buy comfort, buy quality. A bed, my desk chair, footwear, underwear, wherever you're sitting a bunch, standing a bunch, if you're utilizing it all the time, invest in quality.
Man, I think that's so huge. I think that's one of the things that you notice about people of affluence is they always invest in their footwear. I think that's a key feature. Any suggestions on your favorite kind of work boot or maybe not work boot, but footwear?
For sneakers, I wear Field Grounds brand. They're out of Europe. They've gotten super expensive now with the tariffs, but that's my go-to sneaker. They're a barefoot style shoe. I don't know that it'll work well on a farm, but for just kicking it around the gym, town, off farm, I love those. They've lasted me. My oldest pair is maybe 4 years old now. Bought a few more pairs on Black Friday, but I absolutely love them.
Very cool. Diego Footer with Modern Grower, Farm Small, Farm Smart. Thank you so much for joining us on the How I Grow This podcast. Where's the best place for people to find you and all that you're up to?
I think the best place today is on YouTube. Just search for Diego Footer on YouTube, or Modern Grower Pro is our channel on YouTube. I'm posting 2 to 3 videos a week up there, all about farm business and growing. So check us out. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Absolutely. For those of you who don't know, this podcast is brought to you by SeedTime. SeedTime is a digital garden planning software designed to make farming and gardening easier, no matter what scale, whether you're a small scale farmer, a home gardener, or a homesteader. SeedTime is there for you. Get started absolutely free for life. Just by jumping to seedtime.us, where you can easily integrate your crop calendar, your task management, your journal, your layout, and coming very, very soon, inventory, records and analytics, and integrated weather. Make sure you check us out, seedtime.us, and we hope this episode was really great. If you liked it, share it with a friend, or smash that like or subscribe button. It makes all the difference in the world. Thanks. Have a great day.